Today, more households buckle under the strain. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics Firm that is posts covering finance and property news. Well, as reported in the AFR, almost 1 in 3 Australians are struggling to make ends meet as cost of living pressures push more people to renegotiate bills, cut back on groceries and access their superannuation early. And 1 in 5 hit up friends or families as times tighten. About 30% of Australian adults find it difficult or very difficult to get by on their current income. That's according to a quarterly poll by the Australian National University. Now, of course, borrowers have been hit with 12 interest rate rises since May 2022 as the RBA tries to get on top of the most acute inflation outbreak in decades. The ANU survey, which collected responses from 4,200 Australians aged 18 years and over, finds financial stress is on the rise, with 2/5 of renters finding it difficult or very difficult to get by on present income amid a nationwide surge in rents. But the biggest increase in stress over the past year was among people with a mortgage, who have borne the brunt of the fastest interest rate tightening cycle in a generation. About 3 in 10 borrowers are finding it tough, they say. ANU Professor Nicholas Biddle said the survey showed people aged 35 to 54 reported the biggest rates of financial stress, followed by people younger than 35. These findings paint a challenging picture of the Australian economy, which has been battered by the pandemic and an inflation crisis in recent years, Professor Biddle said. While on some measures Australia has performed better than some of its counterparts during these challenging times, our results show that many people on the ground are really doing it tough. About 1 in 2 respondents said they had postponed a major purchase in the past 12 months, while close to 60% of people said that they had spent less on groceries and other essential items. 1 in 5 people borrowed money from friends or relatives, and about 15% of respondents said they had renegotiated their mortgage or rent to pay less, while 22% had renegotiated other bills. And meanwhile, the proportion of people accessing the superannuation early increased to 6.8% from 5.9% between January 2023 and August 2023, which the researchers said was a potential area of concern since early access policy has not changed over that time frame. The challenging economic environment is weighing on people's mental health too. Psychological distress is sitting well above the survey's pre-pandemic baseline and is near levels observed at the onset of the Delta lockdowns back in 2021. And the survey also identified a large decline in the proportion of people who are satisfied or very satisfied with the direction of the country. Satisfaction fell to 64% from 76% between January and August. Satisfaction with the direction of the country is approaching the levels we saw just before the federal election, which will be a worry for the Prime Minister and his first-term government, Professor Biddle said. Now, all of this data chimes with Roy Morgan's recent mortgage stress results, which showed levels of pain not seen since the global financial crisis, and CBA's recent data that showed that younger Australians in particular are being hit really hard, with spending falling and savings drying up. Now, none of this should be a surprise to followers of this channel, as I've been reporting the steady rise in cash flow stress in recent times to new highs. My latest data to the end of August will be out in the next few days, and the trends continue to deteriorate. As I discussed yesterday, while the CPI drifted lower last month, partly thanks to some significant number wanging, rents surged 7.6% in the year to July, with new rents running at a faster pace according to CoreLogic, so expect further rises here. And again, this chimes with my rental stress analysis, which shows that 68% of renting households are under stress, and that's another record. Add to that the hikes in gas and electricity prices thanks to stupid government policy, where Australians are exposed to the worst of the global gas markets, and where, because of these policy areas, now more taxpayer funds are being used to try to alleviate the consequences rather than dealing with the underlying issues of international corporations holding the country to ransom. And the ABS showed recently in their cost of living survey that mortgage interest payments nearly doubled in the year to June. The situation facing households will only get worse as thousands of pandemic fixed-rate mortgages expire. Only 2/3 of the RBA's interest rate hikes have so far been felt by borrowers, according to the CBA. But with a further $52 billion worth of fixed-rate loans expiring over the second half of 2023, and around 85% of the RBA's rate hikes being felt by borrowers by the year end, it's going to get worse. And the point is this: there is no way out of this mess, because by mid-2024, once the pandemic fixed rate loans have expired, Australians will be paying their highest ever share of income on mortgage debt repayments, again according to CBA. And stupidly high migration set by the Albanese government is stoking the fire, forcing rents even higher, at a time when new building approvals data from the ABS showed that they had fallen again. In fact, the total number of dwellings approved fell 8.1% in July, that's in season-adjusted terms, following a 7.9% decrease in June. The fall in the total number of dwellings approved was driven by a decrease in private sector dwellings excluding houses, which fell 15.8%, following a 21.9% fall in June. And I keep highlighting, of course, that the approvals for units goes all over the place because they are very lumpy. But we can conclude that less new approvals are being pushed through at the moment. Total dwelling approvals actually fell in most states, with Victoria down 18.3%, Queensland down 5.5%, Western Australia down 5.2%, New South Wales down 4.7%, and South Australia down 2.6%. But Tasmania rose 39.5% after falling 36.6% in June, but that is a small and very volatile series. Approvals for private sector houses were mixed across the states, with rises in Western Australia up 6% and Queensland up 5%. South Australia fell 9.1%, Victoria was down 4%, and New South Wales was down 3%. The value of total building approvals fell 16.9% after a 7.2% June increase, and the value of total residential building fell 4.4%. That comprised of a 5.1% fall in new residential building and a 0.4% decrease in alterations and additions. And interestingly, the value of non-residential building approvals also fell, down 27.8% in July, following a 28.6% increase in June, but this again is a volatile series. So if you stand back and think about all of this, it's clear to me that households are very much now caught in the teeth of the gale. But the weather forecast, in my mind, is going to get worse, not better, over the next few months. And there is still a risk of higher interest rates down the track because inflation is still pretty stubborn, but the consequences on real households are now getting serious. But I also make the point that all the information is not pointing in the same direction. There is some interesting data on retail, which was a bit stronger. And we also know that some households are still spending freely, particularly those buying properties with cash rather than actually on a mortgage. And some other indicators are also pulling in a different direction as well. So my conclusion is simply this, that there is a proportion of households with their backs up against the wall and with no way out. That's why I'm expecting more properties to start listing later on as people make their own decisions to get out before it's too late. But of course, if you are somebody with a property and you decide to sell, then you're falling into the rental sector, which is also equally bad. So as Edwin and I keep saying, where are you going to go? Now, this is a significant disaster for individual households and also for the country, but it's been created by bad policy over the last 20 to 30 years. Not only have we been pushing interest rates down lower so that people were able to borrow more, to drive home prices higher. But of course, the RBA had to put rates up again to try and deal with inflation. The whole monetary policy strategy is actually not very effective. But more importantly, the broader fiscal and policy directions from governments over the last decade plus have also been going in the wrong direction. Let me point again to migration, which is way too strong, and too many other issues where in fact the governments, both at a state and federal level, have thrown money at the building and construction sector to try and prop up the economy. So unless things change from a policy perspective, I can only see things getting worse over the next year or two. And by the way, that does mean more likely falls in property prices ahead rather than rises. Now, if you're buying your home in Sydney's contentious market, you don't need to stand alone. This is the time you need to have Edwin Almeida from Ribbon Property Consultants standing alongside you. Buying a property is both challenging and adversarial. The vendor has a professional on their side. Emotions run high, price discovery and price transparency are hard to find, and then there's the wasted time and financial investments that you make. Edwin understands your needs, so why not engage a licensed professional to stand alongside you? With RPC, you know you have experience, knowledge, and master negotiators looking after your best interests. So shoot Ribbon an email at info@ribbonproperty.com.au, and if you use the promo code DFAWTW/Martin, you can get a 10% discount offer. I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.